Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Good evening. Welcome, friends. Welcome to Kardec Radio. My name is Teresa, Castro, and I am the host for the Sunday 6 p.m. prayer program. Thank you, everyone, for signing in, and big hello to you who may be listening to this on demand. So nice to be with everyone. It's always great to pray, and especially to pray with others. So this evening, our message before our prayer, we're going to look at a section in the Gospel according to Spiritism. And it is chapter 23, and it's items 9 through 18. And the chapter is entitled Strange Morals. Hello, Slavic. Welcome. Nice to see you. And somebody with the Kardec Radio. Hello, welcome this evening. So again, we're going to read a little section out of the Gospel. It's under the chapter Strange Morals, which is chapter 23, and it's items 9 through 18. And this is an interesting chapter, and especially this section, because it is about when Jesus says, I have not come to bring peace, but division. So we'll read two little sections out of the New Testament. One is from Matthew, and then the other is from Luke. Okay, so here's the one from Matthew. And this is Jesus speaking. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to separate a man from his father, a daughter from her mother, and a daughter-in-law from her mother-in-law, and a man will have as enemies those of his own house. So that's from Matthew chapter 10, verse 34 to 36. So these are out of the New Testament. And here's the one from Luke. I have come to cast fire upon the earth, and what do I desire except that it be lit? I must be baptized with a baptism, and how I am in a hurry for it to be accomplished. Do you believe that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I assure you, but on the contrary, division. For from now on, if there are 5 persons in a home, they will be divided against one another, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. The father will be divided from his son, and the son from his father, the mother from her daughter, and the daughter from her mother, the mother-in-law from her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law from her mother-in-law. That's from Luke. So it's interesting to think that Jesus would have spoken these words. But, Kardec, it goes on to explain in the rest of the chapter to better understand. And he says, of course, if you take this literally, it doesn't make sense. And Jesus can be misunderstood because it sounds very contradictory to the mission of Jesus, which was based on the law of love, charity. So it sounds very contradictory. But Kardec reassures us that it is not, that it's just not understood. He says that, if we know that it's true because the ideals of Jesus have survived. So the rabbis and the high priest killed Jesus trying to kill the idea, to kill his doctrine. And it survived. And so this is one way we can know when something is true, when it survives. Because if it isn't true, or absolute truth, it will eventually phase out one way or another. And so Kardec says what we can better understand about this Jesus bringing division and discord and all this disharmony is that we should take into consideration translation, that he points out even the apostles and the followers of Jesus, they couldn't agree on the interpretation. And then the New Testament has been written and rewritten and interpreted from so many different languages. So he says that needs to be taken into consideration, that possibly the word hate wasn't even used by Jesus, but in the translation, it became used, and kind of changes the meaning a little bit. Because different words can have different attachments depending on the culture. So also, he said that, it's interesting because Socrates brought, this idea of, loving your neighbor as yourself. And why didn't it survive then? And he says, because Kardec tells us it wasn't the time. We think it should have, right? Socrates was a very learned man, and the Greek culture was pretty advanced at that point. But Kardec says, reasoning tells us it wasn't the time. The soil had not been fully prepared yet. And so what makes more sense is to understand that what Jesus was relaying to us in saying this idea of, my coming is not going to bring peace, is just that he knew his doctrine was not going to be established peacefully. And why? Because it has to root out all those things that are not in line: pride, selfishness, vanity, our material attachments. So it's a good thing, to take a look at this, because this is so appropriate for where we are today. It's like Jesus's doctrine is shaking up the world, and we're being shaken again. And how are we responding to this shaking? Are we complaining? Are we blaming? Are we joining in? Are we, instigating a competitive nature? Us against them, and what's my political views versus theirs? And yes, it gets really intense. And so I think this is better what Jesus was referring to, that this law of love, this doctrine of peace and love and nonviolence, there was going to need to be a lot of shakeup. And in that shakeup, there would be things that wouldn't be comfortable. And we see this today, right? Even in families, there can be a lot of division. So we really need to use our reasoning when we look at reading, especially historical literature, and taking into account translation and meaning of words and so on and so forth. But I think we as Spiritists, we can also remember that Jesus said, he would send a consoler, that his teachings could be reestablished and understood, better explained, because perhaps he understood that there was going to be a lot of disagreement and different powers coming into authority that would not translate his message correctly. So here we are, and this is now our job to help pass on Jesus's message. And we know this is not about Jesus never promoted war or killing in his name or imposing on people. And this is another thing that Kardec points out in this chapter, is that Christians went from being persecuted to being persecutors. And this is certainly not in alignment with Jesus's teachings. So I would like you all to take a look at the chapter. It's very enlightening, and it helps us to better understand how important it is that we use our reasoning when we read literature of any type, to use our discernment and think about words and the meanings that are behind them, and how we see this attached in our own culture. What are the attachment to these different words? So I'm going to ask you now to go ahead and close your eyes if you can, if you safely can, and we will head into prayer. Beloved Creator, first cause of all things, we come to this prayer session as your children, carrying that divine flame within us. And we welcome the opportunity that we may evolve and progress in becoming more like you. And we would like, during this prayer session, to pray for our brothers and sisters around the world, in our own homes, in our communities. Those brothers and sisters that we may not know, maybe we do know. Those brothers and sisters who are in more need than ourselves, and even those brothers and sisters who may appear to be in less need of ourselves. We pray for blessings, and that we may come to better understand Jesus' doctrine, not only to know and understand, but to believe and to put into practice in our daily life. And we ask for ongoing inspiration, for courage to continue on our way, to remain committed and true, firm in our convictions, and not get weakened or tired when those around us don't understand, don't want to understand. Let us continue along our way with a loving heart, shaking the sand off our sandals and blessing as we continue. And let us remember, although we may not be able to feel that deep love within our heart for everyone, let us remember to practice charity, and that is being willing to overlook people's shortcomings, avoiding setting up obstacles to reconciliation, offer that helping hand when we can, and having goodwill, good intentions, without ulterior motives. And the real hope that someday we may better understand each other. And with true humility, reverence, and respect, we ask to close this prayer session. And we thank all the good spirits and those who help to support this platform, that we may continue to study, learn, and nourish our souls. So be it, my brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you all again next week. Same time, same station, Kardec Radio. Blessings, have a good week, and let's all remember to help somebody else.